Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special April 19, 2018 edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mikey B, WWE, and this is a special podcast this week because I'll be reviewing all the reactions and results of WrestleMania 34. And though I know, and I realize that this event did happen about a week and a half ago now, 11 days ago to be exact, and surely there has been plenty of fallout and new storylines being developed since, I felt that it was necessary to certainly go over all the results and discuss what went right and what went wrong with WWE's biggest event of the year. So heading into this pay-per-view, which pretty much is the culmination of the year. Even though it's never officially announced, this marks the very end of the calendar year in the world of the WWE. And as a result, I also have made this pay-per-view being my final pay-per-view for the predictions for the wrestling year in the WWE. So heading into the event, my prediction scores for all the other pay-per-views leading up to WrestleMania 34 for the year came at 58 out of 99 matches. So I was certainly hoping to improve upon that percentage after WrestleMania 34. I'll discuss that a little bit later on, how I fared, but I'll break down now the matches which occurred and, again, discuss the results and which ones made sense, which ones didn't make a whole lot of sense. There were, as I expected, 11 matches officially on the main card. There were only 10 advertised, and of course the one which myself and I'm sure many fans expected and ultimately did get, The Undertaker versus John Cena, did wind up happening, so which made it 11 matches as opposed to the 10 originally scheduled on the card. So let's start with the top. The first match of the evening was the triple threat match for the WWE Intercontinental Championship, which featured champion The Miz taking on Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. Now, in the WWE, they'd been discussing for a while that The Miz was approaching a new record for longest reign for an Intercontinental Champion. And I personally felt that with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor both looking very good, very strong lately, that one thing that would have made sense to me was that this program, this feud among these three guys would continue on, certainly closer to the date when Miz would overtake the longest reign for Intercontinental Championship. So I felt that Miz would have came out with this one, holding the belt, but certainly in some sort of a dirty way with help from his Miztourage members, which would have set up another return contest at the next pay-per-view or whenever, or at least closer, like I said, to the date when the Intercontinental Championship the record would have been broken. Instead, the WWE decided to take the title from him, and even though I felt if they were going to do that and give it to Seth Rollins or Finn Balor, even though I felt that Finn Balor was the more deserving of the two, considering he has not held any title in the company since Seth Rollins injured him on his very first his first pay-per-view fight at SummerSlam back in 2016. In which Finn Balor successfully defended, or not defended, but he won his first belt against Seth Rollins there in the main event at SummerSlam. But in that match, Seth Rollins, of course, injured Finn Balor accidentally, which sidelined Balor for many months. He missed the rest of the pay-per-views that year and didn't return till after WrestleMania. So to me, it would make sense that Finn Balor would get a belt in exchange for only having a belt for one single day. Because as I've said before on this program, these guys and girls, when they win championships, they are earning more money than their other coworkers. So it's not only a prestige thing, it also, it's, I think, certainly a rewarding for these people to be champions and get their opportunity. And meanwhile, Seth Rollins has won the tag team championships in that time, and he's been in other high-profile matches, even in spite of his questionable track record with hurting his opponents in the ring. Certainly accidentally. He's not doing it intentionally, but it's still, that does smear his record a bit more, that he's hurt a number of people in high-profile matches. So, but yep, to my surprise, the company decided to go with Seth Rollins, getting the victory and earning the Intercontinental Championship, and as a result joining the newest formation of the Grand Slam winners in the WWE. So yeah, a bit of a surprise to open the show. The second match up was for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship, with Charlotte Flair coming in as the champion, taking on the undefeated Asuka. And Asuka's undefeated streak also predates her time on the main roster in the WWE. Prior to being called up to the main roster, she was on NXT for quite some time and was also undefeated there. And since she came up to the main roster, she's been absolutely red hot, not only continuing her undefeated streak, but also winning the Survivor Series matchup, being the lone survivor in the women's Survivor Series style match in November, and also winning the Royal Rumble in January. So, you know, all logic pointed that Asuka would likely get her championship and, in my opinion, presumably start a feud with Charlotte Flair, going back and forth with each of them getting an opportunity to win the belt. And I must say, watching this match, which was to me one of the best ones of the night, and one that I was also most eager to watch, since the two of them have not squared off yet, I must say that Asuka, to me, hands down, was the better in-ring worker than Charlotte. As great as Charlotte is, Asuka, I think, is just that much better. And I would go on to say, also to add to that point, that I believe Asuka is the best female wrestler in the company at the moment. And that's certainly high praise, considering the level of talent that the company has right now. I would say is unmatched in any other era right now, considering the depth on the roster, with talents like Charlotte Flair, like Natalya, like Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, etc. There's many you can name here that are very, very terrific in-ring workers, but Asuka to me is even better. And surprisingly, again, even though I thought this would be her big night, her coronation, Charlotte Flair defeated her clean by submission. So Charlotte Flair retained the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. So not a great start for me with my predictions going 0-2 in those first matches. And I was hoping that things would have improved in the third match, which was the Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE United States Championship, featuring champion Randy Orton, Jinder Mahal, Bobby Roode, and Rusev. I ultimately chose Rusev to win the belt here because if you've been watching WWE programming anytime in the last several months, you can't help but notice the reaction, this very positive, strong reaction Rusev has been getting from the audience everywhere he's gone. With the Rusev Day chants and everything like this, he's certainly one of the hottest babyface characters in the company, even though technically he wouldn't, I would say, be classified as a babyface. They're still writing for him as he's a heel character, but he's very over with the crowd. He has a very strong reaction from them every time. And I thought, you know, since all these guys have all held, if not this belt recently, they've held certainly other belts in recent months, I thought Rusev was due. He hasn't had a title for quite a while, for at least a few years. And I think probably most people would not have guessed this, but Jinder Mahal was actually the one successful in this matchup, this Fatal 4-Way. Orton, I could see him moving on to maybe a main event status for the WWE Championship or the Universal Championship or something like this. So that wasn't a surprise that he dropped the title, especially in this type of format, a Fatal 4-Way, where he doesn't have to be pinned or submitted or really even defeated to lose the belt. It can be a decision can come at any of the other competitors. So I didn't think he would win, and I wasn't surprised by that. Bobby Roode, a relative newcomer, he already won it, and I could have seen him also possibly winning it back. But to me, Rusev made the most sense. The company certainly is not ignoring how popular Rusev has been, and the fact that he had Aiden English, his partner in crime, escorting him to the ring and being by his side at the ring. I thought that this would have given him certainly the extra edge to securing the victory, with possibly a little help from his heel buddy Aiden English if it came to that. But yeah, Jinder Mahal, with after some distraction from his buddy Sunil Singh, was able to capture the United States Championship, marking a really major year for Jinder Mahal, having been the WWE champion for the better half of last year, and now capturing his first United States Championship. So, well done, Jinder Mahal. Clearly, the company they like you as a heel character, and there certainly are a lot of possibilities with Jinder. I just didn't think of the 4 competitors he'd be the one walking away with the belt. So, anyways, so starting off 0-3, I was feeling a little bit disappointed and hoping that the rest of my predictions would turn things around. And fortunately, in match 4, things did start to turn around for me. The 4th match was the much hyped, much anticipated mixed tag team match with Kurt Angle, general manager of Monday Night Raw, with his partner making her debut in the WWE as a wrestler, Ronda Rousey, taking on Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And this one, to me, was one of the no-brainer matches of the night, where, you know, it would be completely nuts to make Ronda Rousey in her highly anticipated, much ballyhooed debut lose in that debut, especially to a guy who is only now competing essentially at WrestleManias every year. He's sort of just a nostalgic act, and he's busy being the COO of WWE in real. So he hardly wrestles. So, and in recent years, if you look back, he's been pretty much letting anybody who faces him at WrestleMania beat him, because it's better for their career push. And then also his tag team partner and real life wife, Stephanie McMahon, not a wrestler. So it would have been, like I said, it would have been nuts if they would have, for some reason, made Triple H and Stephanie be victorious in this match. And this match certainly was entertaining. One of the longest matches of the night, but it had the crowd in the palm of its hand, and they really worked well. Keeping Stephanie from having to actually fight with Ronda for the better part of the match. So it was the pace was certainly good. One thing that I noticed, and I am very critical of with this match, is that at 2 points in the match, definitely, and possibly more, when Triple H and Kurt Angle were in the ring fighting each other, while the 2 female competitors were not in the match, they were waiting to be tagged in. So when it was Kurt and Triple H fighting in the match in the ring, and let me also remind you all that these 2 guys are 2 absolute bona fide Hall of Famers. Many would argue 2 of the absolute greatest of all time. I would certainly rank Kurt Angle higher than Triple H in such a ranking. But besides the fact, I did notice twice that Triple H, while wrestling Kurt, was calling his spots in the ring, which to me is a very unprofessional move. And what calling the spots is he was basically saying out loud to Kurt what the next move that they were going to do together was going to be. So twice I heard him. The first instance, when Triple H had Kurt Angle by the ropes near where Stephanie was by their corner, I should say, and he instructed Kurt Angle, instead of putting his head on the top rope, he yelled to him, second rope, so that Stephanie could come by and kick him, and it would be more of a lower level, so Stephanie could reach him. And the second instance was when they were, again, scrapping in the middle of the ring. You could hear Triple H tell Kurt Angle the next move coming up was a spine buster. And sure enough, 5 seconds later, Triple H performed said move on Kurt Angle in the middle of the ring. So, I'm not a fan of this ever, of wrestlers calling their spots, because it really breaks the reality of, just the magic that these performers create in the ring with captivating an audience with a believable performance. So I don't like that, and I must say I don't generally catch that many performers doing this. John Cena is one who I've caught on a few occasions, but it's typically with specific wrestlers like AJ Styles, surprisingly, who is, quite possibly the best wrestler in the company. I've caught Cena doing that a few times in matches against AJ. But Triple H, certainly being such a veteran, if anything, he should know better than anybody else not to do this when there's so many cameras around on the biggest event of the year, when there's so much coverage. So definitely they lose some points for quality of match when I catch them doing things like this. I understand that every person, every wrestler, male or female, works differently in the ring. Some like to plan things out very meticulously beforehand, how the matchup will go. Some like to plan it kind of loosely with a few main parts or segments already planned, and then they fill out the rest in the ring. And some just like to completely call it in the ring, as they say. So I don't know if this is just because it was Triple H and Kurt. Again, I think a lot of times it depends on the chemistry in the ring between the competitors. Since I've seen John Cena do it with AJ Styles, but not with many other opponents. But regardless, I understand that they have to communicate in the ring sometimes, especially when it's a loud, raucous crowd of 75,000 or so people. But even so, they have the time to work this out and to plan. And if they're going to talk, they need to be very, very discreet about this, or else, again, it disrupts the whole event itself, and it puts it tarnishes any matchup that goes on. So that is a bit of a shame that I caught Triple H doing that with Kurt Angle a few times. So, because I expect more, certainly from these guys who are Hall of Fame caliber individuals. Anyways, enough about that match. Moving on to the fifth match of the night. And sorry if I didn't mention Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey were victorious. I should have definitely clarified that before moving on. So on to the fifth match of the night, which was for the tag team championships on SmackDown, featuring champions the Usos, the New Day, and the Bludgeon Brothers in a triple threat. I kept this little winning streak going by correctly predicting that the Bludgeon Brothers, after their reign of terror, would be successful, and they were. They decimated both these other two teams in a very quick fashion. So the Bludgeon Brothers, Luke Harper, Eric Rowan, are the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and well deserved, I would say, considering they've been on a path of destruction since they've been repackaged into WWE. And the next match of the night, the sixth match, was the one that nobody knew for sure if it was going to happen or not, but most of us figured it was going to happen, which was after teasing us for weeks, even months, about John Cena versus The Undertaker, we finally got the real thing at WrestleMania 34. But of course, even with that, it didn't come with some further drama, some further controversy. When John Cena was expecting Undertaker to come out from the back, first we got to see Elias, the wrestler Elias, and then the WWE certainly played on that fact for a while, that he was the big deal that was coming out, not the Undertaker. Eventually, the Undertaker did make his grand entrance, much to the delight of the fans in attendance and to many of us watching around the world. And I did feel that if this match were to take place, which it did, that The Undertaker would be victorious. What I did not expect, though, was that this match would be so one-sided and end so quickly in mere minutes. These two guys are two of the absolute greatest performers in the history of the company. I just mentioned a few moments ago that Kurt Angle and Triple H are some of the all-time greatest. Both of these guys rank higher than both of those two. So you would think at WrestleMania, since the two of these guys have never locked up, that we would get a pretty good contest, even if it's not very long, considering Undertaker's his health, his age, and his wear and tear, things like this. But I don't know. I still expected that there would be, some impressive spots, some cool moves, and different things that we've never seen before from these two. But Undertaker just completely ran through John Cena in under 3 minutes and was victorious. So, which is certainly a great indication if we are to expect to see The Undertaker resume his career. And I'm certainly glad, as I'm sure many wrestling fans around the world are, that Undertaker's final match was not against Roman Reigns. Thank goodness for that. Roman Reigns has certainly improved, but he is nowhere near the caliber as someone like John Cena or some of these other people. So it's nice that The Undertaker wouldn't finish his career against Roman Reigns. I guess that possibility is still out there, since we thought he was retired and he's not retired now, and we don't know how much longer he's going to continue or if he's going to do this again at next year's WrestleMania. Many questions abound with this, but good news is that Undertaker made his appearance and won the match against John Cena. Okay, so after starting 0-3, I was correct in the next 3 matches, and I was looking ahead at the remaining matches on the card, and I was feeling pretty confident in myself that the rest of these predictions would all go according to plan. And in some cases they did, some they did not. The next match of the night was a tag team match between returning Daniel Bryan, the general manager of SmackDown, against Shane McMahon, the commissioner of SmackDown, taking on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And the stipulation in this match was that if Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn won the match, and these guys were recently fired by Daniel Bryan, that they would, if they were victorious, they would be rehired to SmackDown Live following the match. And similarly to the line of thinking about Ronda Rousey winning her debut match on WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan, who's so beloved and is considered one of the absolute greatest in-ring workers, in-ring performers of all time, him making his return after 3 years away from the WWE, again, in my mind, there's no way you're going to make him lose at WrestleMania in front of 75,000 people going crazy for him. So this one made perfect sense that Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon would be victorious, and that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, though they had to still remain fired from SmackDown, they could easily get moved to Monday Night Raw. And sure enough, this all transpired this way. So good for Daniel and Shane, and this was certainly one of the most heartwarming moments of the night, seeing Daniel Bryan come back and looking great, as like he didn't even miss a step, and the crowd was fully engaged in this matchup. So well done, and also kudos to Kevin and Sami for being just terrific performers in the ring and carrying this match pretty well too. So that's now 7 of the 11 matches. The next one on the contest, the 8th one, is for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. And the contest was between champion Alexa Bliss taking on Nia Jax. And the storyline angle here was that Bliss was basically caught for talking smack about Nia Jax and really being a bully, calling her names and things like this. So to me, as I said on my prediction show for WrestleMania, this was one of the also most no-brain contests. There's no way the company is going to go with let a bully keep winning like that, who's really saying some hurtful things. So, and it's finally Nia Jax's time to win her first championship, and this storyline completely fed into that, and it made sense. And sure enough, she was victorious. And well done, Nia Jax, for winning your first championship. Next one here. This one was one of the most hyped matches for WrestleMania, and really the first one that sort of started the momentum heading into WrestleMania. The WWE Championship match between champion AJ Styles against Shinsuke Nakamura. Ever since this was first mentioned, it was merely minutes after Shinsuke Nakamura won the Royal Rumble. They were calling this a dream match, and they've been calling that for months, this match being a dream match. And I, along with everyone else, had every reason to believe it would be a dream match. These two guys are easily two of the most talented guys in the ring. They're seasoned veterans who've worked in different promotions all over the world, honing their craft. They're both great, and they can do fantastic matches with anybody, and especially when they have an opponent who is around the caliber of each other. So We all were thinking this is going to be awesome, possible match of the year candidate. What ensued, though, was a bit surprising. It was very slow moving, methodical, kind of they plodded along. The finish of the match was great. AJ Styles was able to secure his finisher on Shinsuke Nakamura after Nakamura tried to give him the knee to the face kick. And so AJ Styles was able to retain in a bit of a surprise again. I thought certainly Asuka earlier in the night and Shinsuke Nakamura would both win their very first titles after having lengthy pushes from the WWE creative team for months and months and months, that these two are two of the best, and it would only make sense for them to culminate with victories at WrestleMania. In both cases, they were defeated cleanly by their opponents. However, this match certainly had the most controversial finish of all, which was as soon as they shook hands and hugged, Shinsuke Nakamura proceeded to hand over the title to AJ Styles, and then got down on his knees and gave him a low blow right in the groin, right in the private parts. So that was a shock. Shinsuke Nakamura is now a heel character. No one can believe it. So at least we are to assume that this feud will carry on, will continue. But otherwise, a bit of a disappointment for the match. Not as exciting as I expected. And on top of this, this WrestleMania event was running again about 5 hours long. Especially and that doesn't even count the pre-show matches, which I never discuss or review because in my mind all these pay-per-views run far too long and there's no time or space needed for discussing the pre-show stuff. So the main card here was running 5 hours. So this being the 9th out of 11 matchups, probably around the 4 hour mark, you can understand that the crowd's already drained a bit from all this. And on top of that, the match itself didn't quite deliver in the way that I feel it could have. Besides the very strong finish of the match, but an interesting outcome. That was I think the most notable thing about this whole matchup was the outcome, the controversial ending following the match. So we'll see what happens, but I'm sure Nakamura will get his title soon enough. Okay, the penultimate match of the night, the second last one, was for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships, with champions Cesaro and Sheamus, otherwise known as The Bar, taking on Braun Strowman and mystery opponent. There was lots of speculation, certainly, leading up to WrestleMania 34, who this mystery opponent would be. I had some ideas, which I mentioned on my predictions podcast. Possibly getting somebody returning who has been out of action for a while, like Samoa Joe or Big Cass, to name a few. Instead, much to the delight of many audience members, even though I thought it was a terrible move, which made no sense to me, Braun Strowman decided that he would choose a spectator in the crowd, and he chose a young boy who was like 9 years old to be his tag team partner. Which was whatever, quite a gimmick in its own way. But Braun Strowman essentially then took on Cesaro and Sheamus on his own in a very brief 4-minute match and won the tag team championships. So Braun Strowman and this youngster named Nicholas were now named WWE Raw Tag Team Champions. Again, I think it's really dumb and stupid, especially because, after so many, they had endless possibilities of who they could have paired up with Braun Strowman. It could have had an amazing debut by somebody, which normally is reserved for the day after WrestleMania, but they could have, changed the format a little and brought someone in brand new here, or they could have brought someone returning and caused a huge stir. But instead, you get some kid who. And nothing against the child, but he's a child. He's not a wrestler. There's no way this will continue on the storyline. So these guys won the belts, and I will get into the aftermath with those two on my next program. But all in all, I didn't like this one bit. Like, this is WrestleMania. We want to see good matchups. We don't want to see stupid gimmicks where you feature someone who's not even a wrestler. I mean, come on. So, anyways, but I was right that Braun Strowman would be him and partner would be the new tag team champs. So, I was going into the final match of the night with 6 out of 10, and I was thinking in the final match was for the Universal Championship between champion Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. This was a match that felt like it was in the making for an entire year, ever since shortly after WrestleMania last year, when it was mentioned that the only two members who defeated The Undertaker at WrestleMania were these two men, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. And with that paired up with the fact that it's quite obvious to all of us that Roman Reigns is one of the main figures that the company has been trying to promote for many years to be the next face of the company. He's been in the last 4 WrestleMania main events, the final matches of these years. So that also speaks to the fact that the company puts a lot of weight on Roman Reigns and the expectations for him. So to me, it was quite obvious that, okay, Brock Lesnar, a guy who's not around very much, and they're even playing up to this storyline angle that Lesnar just doesn't care much. He doesn't respect the men and women in the back dressing room, that he can't even perform much, but he'll still be, again, he's the champion and has been champion since last year's WrestleMania, so he's earning more money by virtue of being a champion. And I'm sure with his very lucrative contract where he only has to appear like 6-7 times a year, it made perfect sense that Brock Lesnar would then drop the belt to Vince McMahon's favorite guy, Roman Reigns. But in surprising fashion, even though this match was back and forth a bit, Brock Lesnar beat Roman Reigns soundly on his own with no need for any foul play or anything. So everybody, I think, was quite stunned by this. I still don't believe and understand why they would have made a move like this. It was announced, I should note, the day after WrestleMania that Brock Lesnar had re-signed with WWE. But surely, this doesn't really mean much other than we'll just continue to see him in his limited capacity. It doesn't mean that going to UFC is off the table. He did this a year and a half ago and went and competed at UFC and then during the middle of his time in WWE. So he's still going to do whatever he wants, and for some reason the company just lets him do that. Roman Reigns, for his part, still is displeased that Lesnar is a part-time guy who's getting all the perks and everything, but this is McMahon's fault, and again, I don't know, this must create such a bad, toxic environment whenever Lesnar is around backstage, because he just doesn't seem like a guy that simply even cares. I don't believe he does. The fact that he's left the WWE so many times for different career pursuits, this is really just, he knows that he's good at this job and can do it. So, but he doesn't. I don't feel any genuine passion or love from the guy for this industry. So, regardless, McMahon opted to stick with Brock Lesnar, keeping the belt, much to the shock of probably almost everybody. And that certainly was also a final note on my prediction for the night. I thought I would move to 7 out of 11, at least having a quite respectable finish for the numbers. But that final twist made me have 6 out of 11 for the evening. And now my final percentage, I should note, for the year after WrestleMania has come to a close, was 64 correct out of 110 matches out of all the pay-per-views of the year, which gives me 58% correct for the year. Now, I have decided that for this next season, I'm going to not only continue to keep my prediction percentages out in the open, I will keep this all-time prediction rate going, but I've also decided for this next year I'm going to compile 2 different records, because this 64 out of 110 encompasses every pay-per-view match that also ended by disqualification, by countout, by no contest, things like this, which are virtually impossible to predict. Only someone in the creative team working very closely with Vince McMahon could ever really know what he's going to decide. Because again, there's no science to this. This is ultimately up to mainly one person and what he decides is best for his company and the storylines. So I do expect that I will improve on these numbers, and I'll keep the regular percentage numbers that I have involving every matchup on every pay-per-view. But as a side percentage, I'm just out of curiosity this year, I'm going to also note how many matches ended in that way as opposed to a clean finish with a submission or a pinfall. I shouldn't say necessarily clean, because obviously foul play does happen, but at least having a proper decision instead of some of these unpredictable count-out, disqualification, no contests, etc. So that pretty much wraps up my WrestleMania 34 recap episode. I am going to be, there's lots of changes that have happened since then, and I will bring everybody up to speed with all these in the next few days with all the events in the last 2 weeks. So definitely this year, if you feel like competing against me in my predictions, pay-per-view after pay-per-view, feel free to involve yourself and include your predictions on my YouTube channel below. See if you have what it takes to out-knowledge me when it comes to this. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you liked what you heard today. It's been a great year. It's going to be an even better year next year. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.